Are you ready to hear a beautiful story of God's redeeming love, of transformation? I can't wait for you to hear this episode. This one is special to my heart. It's my cousin, Heather Register. Listen to what she wants to share with you today. Help me welcome my cousin Heather Register today. She is the wife of Matt Register and the mama of her beautiful baby boy Wyatt. And she has come today to share her story with us. And I am so excited to hear it right along with you guys. So, welcome, Heather.
Well, hello, cousin Stephanie. I am absolutely delighted to be here with you today because it's almost like a full circle moment for me. Um, I remember, you have seen a lot of my childhood and probably remember a lot more of different things than I remember. So it's kind of cool to be sharing this with you.
I
First time like saying everything out in person.
Yes, I feel honored. I really do.
Yeah. On this delightful spring day. And I know Florida weather is probably treating you good.
Yes, it's beautiful here too. Sure is.
Good. So basically, I'm sharing my testimony of living most of my life very insecure, didn't have much self worth. One of the hardest things about sharing the story has been um, if I get into younger years of detail of it, there's some people that could be hurt by me sharing my story. That's one of the hardest parts of forgiveness and releasing those things is sometimes you've forgiven people, but also part of sharing your story, you're kind of rehashing it, bringing it up, and you could hurt people, and so that's been a hard balance to find with me. But God's been leading me, and that's what I've been following, and that's why I'm here right now. So basically, early on in life, Papa was a great farmer.
Yes.
Um, Papa always went by the Farmer's Almanac for so many of his greatest, his sugar cane and all of that. And so early on, I remember many things like that, planting those seeds for me, knowing that there was something greater than us.
Mhm.
Um, I didn't know what that looked like back then. I didn't know, okay, as I got older and you hear universe and higher power, and I've used those, slangs, and I got to skip through a lot because that's why I'm writing a book, because there's so much. So I want to get to the key points. 20s, my 20s, I lived, low self-worth, just really day by day. I didn't really have much plan. I was very much thinking of myself as a victim, thinking I grew up a lot harder than what I actually now realize that I grew up. We had very hard times. There were things, but there's people out there who, have had it way, way worse. So, when I got into my 30s, I was living in Atlanta, and that's one thing about my life is I moved from one place to the other, to the other, to the other, looking for something outside of me. So I was living in Atlanta, and I was a personal trainer there. I worked for like a huge company. Long story short, Atlanta is a seedy place, can be. And my boss actually um, made moves on me there. His wife was the only other female trainer there. And so I went home that night and having no idea what I was going to do next, how I was going to pay bills or anything. I said I would never go back. I would never walk in those doors again. Um, well, I had bartended in strip clubs and different types of clubs throughout my early years. And I knew some girls that danced there in Atlanta
Mhm.
and made a lot of money. These girls were not what I always envisioned when you hear stripper. Um, a lot of them owned successful businesses. A lot of they were beautiful, very classy, all of those things they were not on drugs, So to me, okay, I can do this. going back to early childhood things I can share. I was um, sex and all of that was introduced to me. Not nothing ever happened to me sexually. Thank you, Lord Jesus in heaven. Um, but it was introduced to me. I knew way more than I should have known at an early age. Basically, is what I'm trying to say, and it's not coming out right. But so I was a little numb to that. Like I'm like, okay, like they can't touch me, you know. Not sleeping with men for money. It was real enticing. Like it was all wrapped up, you know, in a pretty bow of like, okay, well, um, I justified it any
Mhm.
way that I could, basically.
Mhm.
Um, and so I did that for quite some time, and I met some amazing women, some, like I said, incredible, smart, beautiful women. So it was easy to justify it. And, but every time I walked in there, as it went on and on, it wasn't when we were in that environment that was the hardest. It was
Mhm.
when you get alone by yourself that,
Mhm.
that's when the enemy does the most work in my mind, because he's already got you in that environment. It's doing the work, you know, like it's got you there. You're there now. So he can just sit back and watch it unfold because it's so fun. And, you know, that's how sin is wrapped up. And so yeah, so you get there and you're alone by yourself, and that's when he starts working on you, you know, you're the loneliness. I don't care if there's people in the room with you or not, you know. I think that's even lonelier, is being in a room full of people and, you know, feeling so alone. So each time I walked in there, it was like I gave a piece of my soul in exchange for being able to work that night, because it just ate at me and ate at me being in there, you know. And I was having fun. I mean, I didn't spend my money on things. I traveled. I did a lot for my family. Like I, you know, again, these justifying things. Um, so I'm grateful for the experience. And then I had a health scare, actually, a cancerous scare. I didn't have cancer. I don't have cancer. Rebuke it, never will. And I then was like, what do I believe? Like, I'm literally just going day by day. You know, I knew who I was like at heart, but I wasn't a good person. I lie. I've stole. You
Mhm.
know, I wasn't sleeping with men for money, but I gave myself away more than I'm proud to say, you know, just no self-worth. And I was tired of living that way. Like I wanted to be better. I wanted to be a better friend. I wanted to be a wife and a mother more than anything in this world. But I realized I'm the common denominator in every situation I've been in.
Mhm.
Whether the person did wrong to me or not, I was the person that allowed that person in my life to whatever degree.
Mhm.
Um, and so I realized like I was the one that, you know, really needed changing. And so I would go dance, and I moved out of Atlanta to Jacksonville. So I'm living in Jacksonville at the time. And so I would go dance and make my money, and then I would come home to Jacksonville, and um I didn't have cable. I didn't have any streaming devices. I literally did not watch TV. I did not hear any news. I didn't know what was going on in the world, didn't care what was going on in the world, because I was focusing on me and healing and all that. So I would come home and read, and just I would go to the beach and spend time writing. Writing's my therapy. That's I've been writing since Daddy passed away, actually.
That's
And
beautiful.
yeah, so it's great actually to look back on now for
Mhm.
so many reasons. There's so many times I thought that I had life figured out. My writing, I'm like, oh, I get it now.
Mhm.
So anyway, so I start searching. What do I believe? What is it that I believe? Like, you know, I say I believe in God, like, but what do you believe? You
Mhm.
know? And so I started watching Oprah Super Soul Sunday
Mhm.
religiously. Like I wanted to hear from different perspectives and not just what you're told to believe in God. I felt very led. I didn't feel lost in the world in it. Um, so many things started resonating with me after watching that, and I would take notes, and I'd fast forward and pause and play and rewind and all of that. And just take as many notes as I could, and I absorbed all of it. And that's when things started, spiritual things started happening. And like that, I don't even know how to begin to touch on that today because I'll take up all your time. It's a lot. So little things started happening. And that's why I know back when the things would happen growing up that planted those seeds. For example, daddy, he eventually passed from a heart attack. But he had had several. In one instance, he died and had an afterlife experience. Now, my dad. He wasn't always an honest man in many ways. He wasn't but if he said something like, "Don't ask questions you don't want to know the answer to," basically. Like when my daddy said something, especially when it come to something spiritual, because it wasn't like he, um, yeah, I believe he was a believer back then, but definitely wasn't living the life. Anyways, so he shared his experience of the afterlife that, he seen everything that was going on. He heard everything that was going on in the room. Like he could tell you everything that happened. He saw our granny, not his mama, but your granny, mama's mama.
Yeah.
And she basically, without like having words, was like, go back, like it's like not your time type situation.
Mm.
And so that is one of those nuggets that I know happened. Then Papa with the, farming, and he was very in tune with the earth and all of that. And um so when I started finding my path and what resonated with me, those were the things that came up that I never didn't believe, you know. And I always thought of like Christianity or Christians so hypocritical. Um so there is a lot, of that. But I also realize now on the other side of it that a lot of it was my own shame making me feel convicted, not necessarily the Christians all the time. I'm
Mhm.
like, because I thought back when I would always say that, and I'm like, wait, so who and when and what? So I started like holding accountability of like when or who was that person that did that, and it wasn't as many as I thought. So
Mhm.
when you're sitting in your shame, that's hard. And I know I've gotten off track here, but
You're
so
right on.
anyways, Oprah Super Soul Sunday, I would
Yeah.
watch it. I'd go home, read whatever, but then I'd go right back and dance. I
Mhm.
had become accustomed to this money. I made a lot of money. I hung out with celebrities.
Mhm.
We're riding around in Bentleys, and I'm going to foreign countries, and it's really hard to walk away from. Honestly. And so I would go back home, marinate on it. Well, then eventually I decided to make the step to move back home to Lake City. It was part of my healing process, to be closer to mama. So I needed to, start there, you know. And so when I moved back home, I would still go back, dance, and like I would go to church, but then I knew that I was going to go dance again, So it's like you lay that baggage down and then you pick it right back up and take it out with you. You go to the altar and you cry and you're begging for breakthrough, but we have free will, and
Mhm.
it takes action on your part, but you don't know where do you start? Where do you start?
Mhm.
It's not overnight. It's inch by inch. And then it's mile by mile. It's creating and consciously choosing to do better. And as I just focused on doing better and being better, the more I was blessed, the more things flowed. Matthew came along. No, I did not meet Matthew in the strip club. um, but that was the end of my dancing journey. Matt came along.
Mhm.
Um, and our first conversation, we had only texted at the time. I was driving to Atlanta to go dance. And we just had normal conversation, whatever it came up, what I was going to do. And then so we talked throughout the weekend. It was normal conversation. I've had many guys come along. Oh, I'll take you out of that environment, or I'll do this, that, or the other for you. Great guys, not just guys trying to buy you. Like the genuine guys, but it never sat right with my soul. Well, Matt
Mm.
never said anything about the environment. He got off the phone with me, talked to his best friend, and was like, yeah, definitely can't date her, but I'm going to see what she does.
Mhm.
So after the weekend, I never went back
Mm.
um, for years. Decided in that moment in Lake City, my hometown, to tuck my tail between my legs. I went and worked at Gators Dockside, making pennies compared to what I'd been making. I did it most of the time with a smile on my face. Sometimes I complain because, you know, human.
Yes.
But I did, like, I just knew, like, this is temporary. This is a stepping stone. Like, this is all part of it. And a lot of people think that I chose to give my life to God because of Matthew. That work was already being done. Matthew was one of those gifts that came along showing me that I was in alignment with what God's path was. When
Mm.
I stopped trying to run the narrative and my type of, guy that I was choosing that I thought was my type, when I got off all of that and literally just worked on being a better me, I was rewarded. The closer I got to him, the more I was rewarded.
Mm.
Um, and so that was just, I just trusted it. It wasn't forced. I let it flow naturally. Like, I didn't go to church raising my hands because other people raise their hands. Like, I do that now because it's genuine, and now I get it. Like, now after redemption, that's why I've wanted so long to share this story, and I'm so glad it's with you. And I know it was a lot of rambling, but I'm not a very good speaker. I'm a good writer. Um,
Beautiful. And
but
I'm loving this. It's just so it's so riveting, really, Heather, because although I know you and I've known you since in utero, so excited when you were born. And then to just know bits and pieces and to hear you putting all these things together, I'm like, wow, wow. I'm so thankful that you're sharing this story. It's going to touch so many people.
yeah, I've been wanting to for a long time. I mentioned it on Facebook last year, but I was more focused on, trying to get him in the world. I didn't know what platform I wanted to use. I knew that there was going to be people that take this information and talk bad about me, or, whatever. And that's why I wore no makeup today. I didn't want to look all extra cute. There's literally snot or tears running down my face, both. I wanted to be authentic because that was what reached me when I was in my crucial moment of, what I was looking for. I was looking for Christians to mess up, to give me an excuse to be like, see, that's what I don't want to be. That's an excuse, because your relationship with God has to do with you and him. They're fighting their battles too,
That's right.
and there was one moment where I was trying to live Christian, but I was also going back into the strip club because it was part of my journey, you know, and it wasn't overnight, but I'm so grateful, and I've constantly been blessed over and over again,
Yes.
you know. But
Uh, you are just, I love it. And
yeah,
you're just so authentic and so genuine. And it's beautiful. You don't even need the makeup. It's so beautiful.
thank you.
Mhm.
I appreciate it. Yeah,
Mhm.
it feels good to talk about, and there's so much more. That's why I'm writing my book, because um there's just so much that I know that I say that I've lived 100 lifetimes in my 40 years, because I've literally done and seen so much, and I know that God is using that, because just like you can touch people that I can't touch, it's almost like a kid goes to a therapist and like, you don't understand, or talking to their mom like, you don't understand. Sometimes if somebody hasn't experienced it, you know then they take it lighter than somebody has been through it. And we all have a story, we all have a testimony that reaches somebody. Like, every single one of us, no matter what you've been through, there's somebody else either going through it, coming out of it, been through it, or and he uses us in that way.
I believe that with all my heart. In fact, that's a large part of the podcast for me, has been able to just share people's stories, because I can't be the one that reaches every person, but yet some of these stories, as you just said, are going to reach different people, a different audience that needs to hear it. Yeah,
Right,
absolutely.
right. Yeah, so I'm grateful. I'm grateful. I appreciate it, and it feels good. It's especially since, we've been trying to do this for a while now, and the more important the story is, oftentimes the harder it is to make it happen, because the enemy knows it's going to touch people, and it's not for everybody. But the Holy Spirit, will do its job and get it to the right hands. And
100%. I agree. Well, so tell us, where, like, give us the update of like where you are now. Like you've told us the story, like from even back to childhood and those really
Mhm.
hard years where you really were searching. And I love to picture that, like you were really searching and you knew way back to Papa, even,
Yes,
which is really interesting to me. We have the same Papa, the same granny, and and I'll share with you sometime my experience with them, because it was probably different. Like we came at that from
right.
different places, which is interesting, in the same family, right? But I love the authentic way that you've shared it, and give us like where you are now. Like how would you draw us to see where you are now?
So that was one of the hardest parts right now today to talk about, and why I wanted to show my postpartum hair loss. Like I wanted to come, filter free, makeup free, like all of the things, even with him. Like I'm a babbling mess sometimes, because everything is so great in my life right now. And I don't want to say that in a way of like bragging in any way, or that my life is better than anybody's, by no means, or that we don't have face challenges or anything like that. But I really believe that I'm living on the other side of God's promise, from walking away and doing the work, doing the work, doing the work. Because I think that gets lost a little bit in your journey, with Christ, or it, period, is it takes work. This is exhausting. Like sharing sometimes is exhausting. It takes a lot of emotion. And that's also part of me and who I am. Because I try to give my all when I do give. And so right now I'm here with, I'm 40 years old. We have little Wyatt here.
Oh,
Um, we tried for a long time for him. And even though the time wasn't so long, it's the pressure that's put on women now of like, you're 40, you're about to be 40. So now on the other side of it, I see too why it took so long, or as long as it did. Um, Matthew and I are living on 20 acres. If you see, it's so beautiful out here. And we are being very conscious about being debt free. We are living beneath our means.
mhm.
We do have luxuries. So
Yeah.
we're not minimalists by no means. But just trying to be really smart, setting ourselves up for, you know, financial freedom. And that's where we are as far as that goes. As far as, our walk with God, there's always room to do better. Always. We're definitely, raising him that way. And um, now that I've had him, I look forward to get back on the worship team, because that was a big part of my life. So when I was younger, people told me like, "Oh, you have such a great voice. You have such a great voice." I didn't believe them, but I knew there was something there. Um, and
You
so, like, I sang the national anthem for the rodeos, but I never pursued ever making it better. Like, I lived in Atlanta. I had been in the studio with people. Like, I never, ever, ever cared to be a singer. I never wanted that lifestyle or that life. So I never worked on it being better. Well, then I started going to church, and I would get to church after praise and worship, because
Mhm.
I'm like, oh, I'll get there after they're jamming out. I'm here to hear the message, not them jamming out. That's what I would say, literally jamming out. Um, so then I remember it hitting me. I started going to Christ Central. It started there. Lonnie's a great pastor. I love hearing from him. He has such a upbeat, just, Um, but then where was it? I want to say it could have been even here in Walkersville, the church that I go to now. I heard this girl sing,
Mhm.
And that was the moment for me that it hit. And it was like, oh, first
Mm.
of all, that's what praise and worship is. Because I went through my journey. The song that I listened to the most every morning, I would get up. And I'm not exaggerating. I'd get up, I'd go work out. But on the way to work out, I'd either listen to a motivational speaker or I'd listen to Tamala Mann, Take Me to the King. It's beautiful. So, anyways, that resonated with me. Why I have a voice. It's for him. It was, I would find out later in life,
Yeah.
that singing worship and praising and just hearing the testimonies and knowing that, I've come out of the fire and I don't smell like smoke.
Yeah. Yes. You're
Yeah.
glowing. The beauty for ashes. That's what it is. Beauty for ashes.
Yeah. Yeah.
Absolutely. And
So,
that's
mhm.
beautiful. And using your voice is so important. I feel like for me, um, I have heard your voice and it is beautiful. I agree with those
Thank you.
people who told you that. And I look forward to what you may get to do with that in the future.
Mhm.
You're on the praise team or going to be back on the praise team, but whatever it is God has for you. But I do believe using our voice is so important. And that's for me been a big part of doing the podcast is being able to use
Mm,
my voice for good and to get other people's stories out there, stories that share hope with people and
yeah.
bring glory to God is my hope. But I love that, and I didn't really realize until you were just saying that at the end that is a connection that we have, that we are both using our voices. And I love that. That's
Yeah.
really
Yes, that is a perfect example of the different levels and ways. And, like I said, I'm a horrible speaker. Like this took a lot out of me today to be able to do it. Took because I know, and I fumble over my words. I get excited. My head has it perfectly lined out, lined up, and then it just comes out. So that's why I write. But I want to, first of all, I want to get better. So you have to do it. And two, I think that the enemy does that oftentimes
Mhm.
uh, as well. And not to give him all the credit, I posted that the other day. Don't give him all the credit. But that is, he'll make you, whether it's insecurities or, whatever he can to hinder you, from being heard from the people that really need it. Um, so pushing past that was really important.
Yeah,
It was really important. Yeah.
absolutely. Yeah. I agree because like you don't want we obviously want to make sure that whatever we do, it reaches whoever it's supposed to. And I believe the Holy Spirit will do that. Like you said earlier, God's going to be the
Mhm.
one that delivers the message that he wants people to hear to those people, directly to those people. And really and truly, we just rebuke the enemy. He doesn't get to have control over that. That's up to the
Absolutely.
Lord.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I just want to represent him well.
Mhm. Absolutely.
I just want to represent him well. I want to, that, like I said, authenticity. For me, being authentic, that's the most important thing. Like I'm a safe place for anybody. I can't do everything for everybody, but I just hope that if gossip comes into your mind, I hope I'm the last person you think of. If if you need advice, if you need a shoulder, if you need something, I hope that I'm one of the first people, if not the first, but God should be the first. Not to
Yeah.
sound cliche, it's true.
Is true. But in saying that, I do believe that if any one of our listeners wants to reach out to Heather, they can do that, right? Through your social media. Is
Absolutely.
that right? Okay. We will put that in the show notes as well. But I do think I would encourage people that if Heather's story has resonated with you, definitely reach out to her because she's got lots of nuggets of wisdom that she can share and help you along your journey as well. And speaking of that, do you have any one like last nugget of wisdom you'd like to share with us today?
um yeah, accountability. That word just, popped into my head. I didn't have anything lined up, but accountability for sure. Um, you know, i- if you want to progress in life, in any area of your life, you have to be honest with yourself. You have to hold yourself accountable. Everybody's got a story. You're not the only one. You're not a victim. It doesn't mean your story is any less or more important. You do have a story, but you also have to hold yourself accountable because, that's what's going to get you to where you need to go. Because if not, you're going to keep going through things because God's going to make sure you learn the lesson his
That's
way.
that's
Yeah.
right. He gives
Yes.
us multiple chances to learn it sometimes if we
Correct.
don't, right?
Correct. Yeah, it's a chance to learn, right? Not why am I going through this, but what is this trying to teach me thing.
Yeah, exactly. And it's so true too, because like the idea of holding yourself accountability versus being a victim, because a victim, they really can't help themselves, right? They don't really, they have kind of given that over their agency over to whatever they're a victim to. And
Mhm.
this is something that I work with clients on a lot. And that is that just realizing that you have agency over that. We don't have to
Mhm.
stay in a victim mentality at all. We're much better to work through, as you were saying earlier, pushing through it, working through to the other side, doing that hard work that gets us
Absolutely.
emotionally resilient, relying on God, as you've
Mhm.
said several times too. And it's such a beautiful testimony, Heather. And I just appreciate you being vulnerable and sharing, and I'm excited to for our listeners to hear this and look forward to what God's going to do with your story.
Me too, me too. And yeah, I personal one-on-one, I promise you it can come out easier. Like I said, like I pushed past something today that is they say that public speaking is one of people's greatest fears over death. So yeah, but sometimes we have to push past it because we got to get the message out. But I appreciate it. I really do.
I appreciate you being willing to be on here today and pushing past it with us in such a beautiful way. So thank you for being here today.
All right. Thank you for having me.
Until next time, this is my hope for you. May you find glimmers of hope everywhere. Be sure to follow and share this podcast. You can find me at stephaniejohns.com. You can use the show notes below for coaching and to join my email list, Hope and Wellness. Be sure to grab that mental health checklist and my favorite planner. All of this and more in the show notes below.